to the Metal Command Podcast.
Greetings and welcome back to the Metal Command Podcast. Tony here with you. And again, always excited to be here with everybody today. And if you want to support the show, by all means, hit the subscribe button, hit that little bell to be notified anytime I do post any kind of content here on YouTube. And if you follow the show on any other form of social media, by all means, give the show a like and a follow there. Plus, if you like the video, give it a thumbs up and leave a comment. Today's show features an interview with two people that really were a big part of the Bay Area thrash scene. Doug Piercy, who many of you may remember from being in the band Heathen, and obviously Rick Hunolt, many of you remember him from Exodus, and he played on a lot of those great early Exodus albums. And both of these guys are incredible guitar players. And I got to be honest with you, I'd never spoken to either one of them before, but it was an extremely fun interview to do. These guys are enthusiastic. They have a brand new band that they are a part of now called Nefarious, which of course has a lot of other great Bay Area, thrash metal guys involved with it. And I really love the fact they brought in Caton DePena from Hyrax for this. I think his vocals are pretty unique. And this band is really cool. Normally, I do not get into bands that have a bunch of guys, former members of other bands, in this case, thrash metal bands. But I got to be honest, I really dig both of the songs, at least at this time, that they have put out. And I decided to want to invite them on the show, and I did. And the interview is pretty funny. It actually reminds me of just three guys sitting in a room just BSing and talking about music. But definitely both of these guys were a lot of fun to have on the show. And we talk about a lot of history. We talk about how this whole band and this project came together. And it was a lot of fun. We kind of go on a little bit of a tangent here and there. But other than that, I truly believe this was probably one of the most fun interviews I've done in a long time. So this is the interview with myself, Doug Piercy, and of course Rick Hunolt here on the Metal Command Podcast. Enjoy. Welcome everybody back to the Metal Command Podcast. I'm joined by two guys who came up in a scene that highly influenced me and this show. Of course, I got Rick and Doug from the band Nefarious. Of course, many of you may know those guys as playing both, Rick playing in Exodus and obviously Doug playing in Heathen in a few other bands. But gentlemen, it's great to be able to talk to you for the first time because you both have a brand new band. I think that's great. And you guys played in bands that really helped shape me as a metalhead. So it's really great to have you both here.
Thanks for having us, buddy.
Glad to hear that. It's been kind of an interesting procedure, all of it. We were just honest, crazy young musicians, just getting really into music back in the early 80s, and then one thing led to another, and now we're here. Jesus, I don't know how to explain it much more straightforward than that.
It's been a ride.
Yeah, so you have this band, you have a lot of great musicians that basically came up through the thrash scene over the years. And how did this whole thing come together for you guys?
Go ahead on that one, Doug.
Well, I was up until I was playing in a band called Blind Illusion for a while. Tom and I were, and after we finished the third European tour, we decided we were gonna stop doing that. And I had a bunch of music and songs that were left over from that whole project that were still metal, and everything was fine and dandy. I just decided, I took a break for a minute and try to figure out what would be cool to do musically, and then just kind of went into the songs that I had and started demoing them. Tom and I the idea was that I was going to do a solo record or something like that, and Tom was going to play bass, and we get our friends to play, guest appearances or whatever.
That's how we all came around.
One thing led to another. I reached out to Will Carroll because Will is from San Francisco, and we play in another, it's kind of a new wave of British heavy metal band called Quintanica, where we play all sorts of ancient songs that that we enjoy, that we listen to when we're just getting back, when we're learning about what was going on in the world of metal. Like, we were very interested in what was happening in Europe. I mean, everything from Denmark scene to the Sweden scene to the French scene with Trust, and then of course the well-known new wave of British heavy metal, where we had Praying Mantis and Iron Maiden, Angel Witch, and so on. And Will is all way into all that stuff too. He's a little younger than us, but he got into it early, and he loves jamming on those songs. So we had him playing in the Quintanica band, playing Angel Witch stuff, and we would play a whole set of Angel Witch stuff from the first record, which is incredibly fun. Believe me, it's that's all super influential stuff. But we would play other sets of various other types of Silver Mountain, ancient, old Scorpions with Uli. We would play Satan, stuff like that. All sorts of stuff from the ancient early days of the early 80s metal. And so when I asked Will about playing drums on the new recording project, he was totally okay with it. He thought it was a great idea. So we started demoing a bunch of Angel Witch stuff. And then we started, just because it's just a Quintanica cover band thing. And I have all those songs still. It's pretty fun. It's like way Bay Area version. It's like a Bay Area version of Angel Witch.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the original songs started coming in, like I had a whole bunch of different ideas for different material back then. The very first version of Addicted to Power was written when we were still playing in Blind Illusion, but we were just trying to figure out how to write the song, and I hadn't quite got to the point where it was finalized yet. But then I started demoing it more seriously and wrote a really long, interesting middle part, and then the ending, and then there was the One Nation Enslaved, Master Plan. All those songs kind of were all from this era, and then we just kept writing. And then I was talking to Rick the whole time.
Well, tell him about the part where you would take these songs and you would arrange them with Will. After you called Tom and Will, him and Will would get in a room together and arrange these songs. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
super cool.
Will's really great at listening carefully and arranging. So what I would do is I demo these songs where they're just a click track, like a metronome click track, and I would play the guitar to it, and write up, record some version, a kind of rude and crude version of the song. Then I'd send it to Will, and we go, and Will and I would go down to his little studio. He's got a studio here in San Francisco as well. And we would just rehearse the songs and kind of like, just thrash them out, see what parts sound great, what part, it's just a click track. So you don't even know what it's like with drums until he starts playing it. And then sometimes we would say, oh, wow, that really sounds amazing. I didn't even expect that kind of a beat or whatever. Or he would say something like, oh, well, we can change it like this. Can you play the guitar like to this kind of a beat? And then, we kind of beat the song around the bush. And next thing you know, they solidify into something I could, really get for a final version of the actual song.
With other people.
And right. Then sometimes I'd send the rough final click track versions around to the people, like Rick, because he said he wanted to play solos on it right away. And then he started getting more excited later and started sending a whole bunch of rhythm tracks down, and I'd incorporate them into the stuff I would write, and we'd co-write stuff. And then, it's just one thing led to another. And then we started recording them 2 at a time, one weekend after another.
Yep.
Yeah, when I heard the first song, it felt like the way that you guys were playing on that track, it felt like you guys had been playing in that band together for like 20 years. I mean, it had that kind of vibe to it. It just felt so natural. And I know all of you, you guys came up through that scene back in the day, but it felt like this band had been together for a very long time. And I think that's part of why I liked, both of these tracks actually, is because you get that vibe. And look, you guys you guys were part of the scene, part of the whole scene that invented it, right? And I listened to it, and right away it just caught me. And with you two on guitar, one of the things that I noticed right away with the first song, like I said, it sounded like you guys have been jamming in a room and playing shows together and doing all this stuff in a band forever. Because it was just like you'd hear one guy playing solos, the next guy would come in. It just felt like natural, like it wasn't, how shall we put it, like too constructed, right? I guess that's probably the best way to put it.
Yeah.
But I think you guys sounded like you've been around forever in this band together, the whole band, not just you two, but
that's amazing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, on the real, so me and Doug have known each other for 40 plus years. And we've both been involved in like going to see Heathen, and he would come see Exodus, and we'd hang out and we'd record and old Exodus demos and all this stuff. But so me and Doug have been, there's a lot of love there, and there's a lot of respect there. From forever. We're just good. We're great friends, dude. We get along well. There's not crazy competition. We just want to play some really badass freaking heavy metal.
Yeah, it's hilarious. Like I'll say, okay, well, this is kind of roughed in so that this will be the solo section, and it's all mathematical. You break it down into like 8 parts, and then it changes key, and then it'll go like 8 parts, or we'll trade off. Sometimes it's a little bit different. There'll be a short one here and a long one there, or whatever. But we would basically just kind of like fly over it and just say, what do you think? You want to play the one in F sharp? You want to play the one in B? What do you want to do? What feels right? What's going to be? What's your jam? And it's like, oh, well, I'll take that one. That's the end of that. And that's how fast it goes. It's like you don't even think about it. You just kind of
exactly how it goes. And there's no ego involved. There's no like, well, yours is longer than mine, and mine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, dude.
It's like sometimes, like the Addicted to Power one is actually kind of like Rick's got the little short one in the front, and I got this big goofy long one at the end or in the middle. And it's kind of like I didn't even think about the one in the front until later, and then I go, whoa, Rick should play something there. But I wasn't even sure what the hell was going on, and we kind of like recorded it, and then there we were, and then Rick snuck the thing in the front, and then that was it. It's not exactly balanced, but it's like not a big deal. It's just like I just get there and just like piss everybody off with a bunch of wild wanking guitar, but whatever.
In that song, I love playing those rhythms. Those rhythms are heavy.
You know what? The rhythms are almost more fun than the solos.
I love playing those rhythms, dude. Sorry, didn't mean to swear. They're freaking heavy, dude. I enjoy playing rhythm guitar. That's
Me too. I mean, I really get off on like when we play with the Angel Witch stuff or like the Quintanica things. Honestly, I will just lay back and I'll be like the big mama, hanging out in the back and just being like no, seriously, a little bit more like Malcolm Young, because Malcolm would just like focus on the rhythm parts,
dude,
and that's all he would play. And it's like, for me, that's like so interesting just to hold the fort down so solidly and play real tight with the drums and the bass and just kind of like make a huge platform for someone else to go have fun on. I mean, it's not always necessary to be the guy on the platform running around, being crazy and wild, playing wild, flamboyant, crazy Malmsteen shit.
Of course, when you've been doing it as long as Doug and I, you learn that everything aside, it's all about the song.
Exactly.
It's all about the song. What's going to make the song better? You know what I'm saying? So ego aside and all that stupid shit. It's just the bottom line is it's all about the song. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter. See, I'll tell you one thing. Doug is really, really good at taking a song and adding these little atmospheric guitar parts everywhere. You know what I mean? So it becomes like this really dynamic, like roller coaster ride of like nice in and out subtle guitar parts that are just cool as hell. You know what I mean? And I'm just like, yeah, hell yeah, that sounds great, Doug. Let's do it, because this song calls for it. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter who
you
plays
do it too, though. You came up with that thing in the day after, and I
it.
wasn't even thinking anything like that. No way, chance, no chance. And you fucking came up with this chord thing, and it was just ridiculous. And it's like I heard it, I was like, that's it. This is what we got to do. But not with all this extra noodly shit. We just got to use these chords. And then I sent it back to you. Remember that night?
Of course.
That was hilarious. It's like it became simple, but it was so epic, and it was necessary just to have it like that.
Yeah. One
of the things too, I think that you picked the right singer for the tracks as well. And
I'll tell you something about Caton. Caton is when we brought him up here the first time, we gave him 150% freedom to do whatever he wanted.
Mm-hmm.
He came in with an empty slate. He barely even heard the songs he was about to sing on. And he barely even had read any of the lyrics. He just came up and honestly did a really, really, really fine job. He's never sung like this before. It's kind of like a new Caton, you know what I mean? And we gave him free reign.
Yeah. He had, one of the interesting things is that he has a little bit more of a, there's certain parts of the songs that he uses kind of more of his melodic side of his singing voice.
Oh, just wait till you hear the rest.
Yeah. I think that really, that's kind of what blew me away, because I've never really heard him sing the way that he does on these two tracks, at least so far that have come out. And I think that it fit really well with the music.
Yep.
Well, that's just kind of like how the production style went, I mean, I had most of the lyrics figured out, like the Addicted to Power song. I think that was the first one we did, or was it? I don't remember.
With Caton?
And I already had the lyrics already written, and I had kind of an idea how to do the vocals lines, but I wasn't really fully sure, of the melody and all that. I mean, we'd actually demoed with another singer. So I did have actually a relatively reasonable, idea of where the direction could go. But then that's where what Rick said is absolutely true. I just showed Caton how we were doing it, and I go, look, take it from here and run with this ball. It's like the quarterback throws the ball out to the tight end of the wide receiver or the running back, and he'll go and run, and he'll come up with some interesting variations of the same thing. And that's where the gold is, because he would take, he would kind of like not really be sure where to start. And I go, well, here's a starting point. Why don't you just take it and see what you can do with this and run with it? And that's when the magic would happen. So that happened a whole bunch of times, pretty much on every song. We would do this procedure. At first, we weren't really sure how to do it, and he was a little nervous. But then it didn't take too long for all the ice was broken and it was all easy, and we're just laughing and having a good time, and we were trying out stuff. And then he'd go back home and we'd all listen, and then he'd come back the next weekend and we would fine tune some parts that were good, but both of us would have some ideas on how to proceed with it, and Tom was sitting there engineering. Like, we did most of the recording of the vocals at Tom's house. And so Tom would run he runs his studio, and I'd sit there and help Caton out with the lyrics and, just how to approach the song, and just watch as the magic comes out. And it was pretty cool.
I honestly think that Caton surprised himself at times too. I could feel it when I was there. I was like, wow, dude, that's really badass. Because he's never sang like that before. He did a really good job, but we gave him free reign and just to be Caton. And, I think he's happy with the finished product.
Sure.
Yeah. I realized he could kind of go in the direction of Bruce a little bit, Bruce Dickinson, this sort of an approach, but he's still heavier with a lot of this kind of, old school metal vibe.
Yeah.
But then he has elements of singing capabilities very similar in some ways to like what Bruce would do. So I just kind of kept thinking in that direction and helping him along with that, and then letting him run with it,
Plus, he's got so much.
It was awesome.
He's got a lot of experience with phrasing, and he's got a lot of experience in metal.
Yeah.
Period. So he knows what he's doing. He's a pro.
I mean, all of you guys, I mean, realistically have had a lot of experience doing this. And I think the fact that a lot of you came up through this scene, you kind of it just naturally, it felt like it just comes to you, I mean, just the type of songs that you're writing. It's not forced.
No, that's good.
Yeah.
It's not,
I mean,
it's not forced and it's not pretentious. It's, we're not trying to do too much. Like I said, it always goes back to the song, but it's always about the song. You know what I mean? We're not trying to be like your neoclassical prog, thrash, death, techno, hard, heavy, whatever. Dude, it's old school thrash. That's what we do. That's what we've been doing.
The blueprint is pretty solid. So like if you kind of stick with that blueprint and yet still innovate off of it, you can, I think that's what really was interesting for a lot of people. I mean, we've heard a lot of response from it, and it's all been, for the most part, really positive, which is tremendous, but there's no secret to it. It's kind of like an old school blueprint, but we bring a lot of really interesting improvisation to it, which keeps it fresh. And that's kind of a good way to explain it, kind of, without getting too detailed into it. What do you think, Rick?
I think there's a lot of thrash going on, but there's also it's very melodic at times, and it's musical. It's just musical.
Yeah, musical. I think. Yeah, the melody's there everywhere. I mean, somewhere. I mean, it comes out even with the bass. Like Tom Gears is phenomenal at throwing down little melody bass lines that honestly, once he puts them down, and I'll be practicing or something, and I'll just have the drums up real loud and one guitar. It's like suddenly there's no bass or vocals because I'm just listening to what I want to do so I can lock in and rehearse a part or something. And it's like, whoa, where's that melody? Oh, I got to turn the bass back up again.
Tom is so amazing. He's literally like one of the premier bass players in this whole Bay Area as far as metal goes. He's just a beast.
Have you guys thought about playing any shows yet or anything along those lines with this?
Oh, less than 3 weeks. Our record release is at the DNA in San Francisco, July 19th. And we are super excited. We couldn't be more excited. Everything's going as planned. We're just blessed.
Yeah, the whole thing kind of came about relatively quickly. Around January, we decided that we were gonna proceed. I mean, at first it was, like I said, it was supposed to kind of be some sort of a solo album, but then the guys expressed a lot of interest in taking it out live and wanting to actually play shows. So I said, fine, that's great, let's do it, So we got the name figured out, and then we started trying to figure out exactly how to proceed with the whole thing, and we figured we would finish this record and put it out and then get some PR behind it and push it hard onto radio and so on, which all was part of the plan. It got a little bit tight because we needed to get it all finished in time to do the show. Yeah. But we still pulled it off. It wasn't too hard. I have a lot of experience meeting deadlines, so it wasn't the end of the world.
Yeah, the band name itself, a lot of the lyrical themes behind the songs. Well, the lyrical themes behind the songs are a little bit obvious, at least for me. But talk about coming up with the band name, and then how that came about, and maybe some of the lyrical themes to these songs.
If you've ever tried to come up with a band name for a band, you will rip your hair out for months and months and months and months. Back and forth with bandmates trying to figure out a good name. So look, this is how we did it. We did that exact thing, but then we stumbled on Nefarious, and we're like, you know what, dude? Everybody, of course, gets on the phone and goes, well, there's 72,000 other Nefariouses, and we're like, dude, but none of them are active except for one that we know of, who's this rap guy who's really good. You know what I mean? And he's still active, and we're like, dude, let's just go for it. Let's just go for it and see what happens. So,
and be honest about it.
And be honest about it. So that's where we're at now. And to not get mixed up in the whole finding Nefarious on streaming sites, we actually added an SF. So it separated us from everybody else in the internet world. You know what I mean? So if you look up Nefarious, it's Nefarious SF.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, you'll see right away that there's variances here and there. And the SF will always bring you right back to solid ground, which is, it's not really that hard to find. But I mean, we just have got a lot of push and a lot of great response from the singles so far, and so we're just kind of like being chill and working with it and letting the thing kind of grow naturally, not artificially pushing it too hard or doing, just like forcing it down, just it's kind of being reasonable about just letting it build like a natural growth process. It's
almost
works pretty well,
almost like the old days without the internet, huh, Doug?
Well, oh God, I don't know, man. I don't know if I agree with that. I mean, suffering with the tapes and suffering with all the mail. Come on. I mean, Jesus Christ. It turned out mailing lists became gold back then, like everybody wanted everybody's mailing list.
Well, I did go to Metallica a couple of days ago and flyer like 300 flyers in the parking lot. That was cool.
That was awesome. That was old school. Now
that was actually a lot of work, dude.
Why was it a lot of work? You probably was easy, just stood there and handed them out.
No. I was running all over the place, but it was interesting.
Really?
Because it was interesting because a lot of people would want a flyer, but then I'd run across people that weren't interested in the flyer at all, and that kind of surprised me. I'm not gonna lie, I had to be honest.
Really?
There was people that were like, no, I'm cool, and I'm like, oh shit, okay. Well then I just need to just. Not get my feelings hurt. Just go about my business.
You could have dropped one off to Metallica.
It was interesting. Nah, dude, I don't.
That's another story.
I went as a total fan. Went as a total fan. That's it. Period. I'm not trying to get backstage at Metallica or try to. I'm over that shit.
Yeah, I gotcha. Well. The lyrical themes behind the songs, you have Master Plan and One Nation Enslaved. Maybe talk a bit about those two singles and the concept, with the lyrics behind them.
Go ahead, Douglas.
Yeah, well,
Douglas is the writer of the lyrics.
I mean, we kind of, when I approach all this stuff, I mean, I've been writing the lyrics, which is kind of interesting. I don't usually write lyrics. But what interests me are thoughtful and thought-provoking lyrics. Like if a lot of bands have really interesting lyrical concepts, it's not always about just continual bludgeoning of, multiple victims and, savagery and all that. I mean, we all have been there. We've all done a lot of that, but that kind of gets to the point of where it's sort of been done a little bit. And so, like the idea of, getting it pissed off and annoyed with all the conspiracy theories that came about with, like we had the COVID thing and everybody was suffering and couldn't go out or go to work and everybody, they closed everything down. And then there was like the vaccination stuff and everybody's sitting around trying to figure out what's going on. So what do? They go to YouTube and then they start trying to figure out. They seem to think that they've got it figured out.
Yeah.
And next thing you know is you get everybody wearing lab coats and they're like farmers and just people that aren't really, from the medical industry at all. And they're out there talking about, like all these bizarre remedies and home remedies for this and that and how the vaccines, the delivery system, the mRNA delivery system is evil. And they don't understand that it's a delivery system and they don't understand anything except for they all agree with each other because it's really easy just to get excited and say, oh, yeah, that's what it is. So anyway, back to the reality of the master plan thing. This is a big parody of all those kind of people. So I kept thinking, well, what's one of the dumbest things that I've ever heard about in terms of conspiracy theories? I mean, there's some actually really interesting ones that warrant some that I still have a lot of questions about. Like the 9/11 stuff's pretty interesting. That's not what I'm talking about in the lyrics of the master plan. The master plan one is one of those awesome discussions about like chemtrails and they're poisoning the earth, and they're what are they doing? They're changing the
weather manipulation,
all this stuff. So I just said, you know what? Fuck this. Let's just take it as hard as we can.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of people in the world, and a lot of people seem to think that we need even more. So like, but I would digress if I went down that one. But there's way too many people. 8 billion people is way too many, and so like there's already trouble with water and making sure people are fed and so on. And if we had 4 billion people, it would be a little bit better. So the idea was like, okay, well, the chemtrails are filled up with chemicals, and they're sterilization chemicals that make it so that we can't breed temporarily, so we can get everything under control. It's all bullshit. It's all based on nothing more than science fiction, but there it is. Yeah. And it's just a parody of the conspiracy theory involving chemtrails. So that's all.
So basically, what we're doing is we're taking what's happening in life, and without picking sides, and just putting it out there, right?
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
But we're not trying to pick sides because we're not political people, and that's how we stay. That's how we stay friends.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I would look at it like, there's been in the last 20 years, there's a lot of reasons for all this, but there's just been so much, the psychological advantages of spreading hate. It's far easier to outweigh the psychological advantages of spreading, good vibe stuff or happiness or love even. It's like don't be
afraid to use the L word, buddy. Love.
Whatever. It's the opposite of hate. That's all I'm doing. I'm going for opposites at that point.
100%.
But the thing is, and in this environment, we've got all this propaganda all over us. And it's pushing these narratives that are, half of them are founded in bullshit, and some of them are founded in like just taking care of people and not really trying to be selfish, and all this. And that's what led up to the lyrics for One Nation Enslaved, because there's a lot of pushing for the one side, and the other side is wanting to kill the opposite side, and the hatred narrative is pushed so hard that everybody wants to kill your neighbor. And is that like, really? Is that really necessary? All we would have to do is like, hey man, you need your lawn mowed. Like, let's work out a deal where we can borrow tools or something and help each other and be cool. But no, it's way too easier to say something, formulate some false narrative and then have everybody jump on the bandwagon. So, the first verse of that song has to do with like, all the accusations of voter manipulation, which if you get into it, you can see that there's manipulation of voting in many countries all over the world for years and years and years. And so it's not taking a side, it's just simply pointing out how it can happen and what goes on,
Yeah, I mean, and I think part of that too, that divide, people want to believe in something and they don't want to find information that might refute that, because they might feel that they lose some power in their life. So they'll believe something blindly without even like
looking it up,
even with proof in front of them that it doesn't exist or that belief is false. They will still believe it.
Because they feel like they need to be a part of something. Every human being on planet Earth we're humans. We need to be a part of something.
Sure.
We need purpose. Without purpose, we're lost.
Yep.
So it gives these people something to grab onto and become a part of. You know what I mean? And I get that. It's religion. It's all of it. It's exactly what it is. So, I just wish that people would like
be more tolerant,
more open mind, and just
tolerant, open-minded. It would really help.
Lean toward the positive. Lean toward the positive, please. It's so much better, But who are we to say? We're just writing lyrics and put it out there without picking sides. That's it.
Yeah.
Period. That's it.
Speaking of something that you were a part of, one of the things that the metal scene or the portion of the metal scene that really ended up getting me into this music was the thrash scene. You guys obviously a very big part of that. And
So what was it about the thrash scene that attracted you?
it was just I don't know. It was something about the music. When I listened to like Bonded by Blood,
was it the guitars?
It was everything.
Right.
So
Gotcha.
I was probably, and I ended up getting into it later, like in the early 90s. I was 6, 7. I was going into high school back then. But I will never forget hearing Bonded by Blood for the first time, hearing Ride the Lightning for the first time, and hearing some of the early, even the Heathen stuff back then. All of those records that had a really big impact on me. And I was a little bit too young to see the start of it, but I had to imagine. Did you imagine that it would become what it did when this whole thing started out?
Hadn't a clue. The last thing on my mind in 83 or 84 was going to see Metallica at a sold-out Levi's arena. Dude, 2 days ago, I just saw that with my own eyes, and it was unreal. It was unreal. I mean, and no, to answer your question, absolutely not.
Mm-hmm.
The last thing on my mind.
I knew we had something special going on, and the Exodus thing. I was in a band that was playing a little bit more progressive metal, and then the Exodus guys came out, and they had like this ridiculously over raw approach to playing hard rock metal. I mean, the metal thing was just starting out, and they were all in it, and it was like, holy shit, this is really fun to play.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you just get that it's a playing style that it comes from the hands.
Hey Tony, have you ever heard of Abel Chorus?
I have.
Oh yeah, that was an ancient band. That was a pretty influential band back in the day.
Doug and Fane back in the day were I would go see, this is before I even played guitar, dude, and I would go see Doug and Fane, and they were really ahead of their time with the guitar harmonies and the arrangements with the keyboards, and Aaron was such a great dude. Abel Chorus was a badass band, dude.
Mm-hmm.
It was definitely different.
And it was different than what we ended up doing a year or a year and a half later. But they stuck out, and they had a great following, and they really had a lot to do with the evolution of our music back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And I will die on that hill.
Yeah, one of the things, especially in when I think of Exodus, for example, I one of the things, it's funny, my son for Father's Day ended up getting me a reissue of Bonded by Blood. I ended up getting, and I hadn't listened to the album. And
how old is he?
He's 18. He just turned 18.
Wow, that's
so
awesome.
He's into that music, and so he bought me. Yeah, he bought me that album. He goes, "Hey, I got this for you for Father's Day," and I hadn't listened to it in quite a while. But when I was playing it, I was listening to a lot of these guitar parts and harmonies that you and Gary played, and when you look at music that had came out back then, I mean, playing that kind of stuff was just like unheard of. Nowadays you hear that a lot with a lot of metal music, but back in those days, when you listen to some of the guitar harmonies played on Bonded by Blood, even like some of the stuff on the first Anthrax album, a lot of these bands, where you guys were like the pioneers of this. And
well, so as far as Bonded by Blood goes, I think that those harmonies aren't really like they're more rhythm harmonies on that album. Like if you want to really listen to some old harmonies and stuff like that, Abel Chorus had a lot to do with, like, I think subliminally all of us back then in the Bay Area.
Yeah, this one here.
I can't hear it.
That all came from Uli,
Oh, absolutely, 100%. No, but
that's kind of like where they came from, and we've been like, okay, so back in those days, when Abel Chorus was trying to do all this heavy, progressive harmony oriented. I mean, our influences were like early Scorpions and Thin Lizzy and so on.
Absolutely.
It's all harmony guitars.
Absolutely.
So I got way into it early. And then, like when I was helping Exodus do their first Turk Street demo, I helped, Gary and Rick. They were responsive to some ideas that I had, when I was helping them record it. And there's like in Deliver Us to Evil, Gary plays this thing, and it's really neat. I showed him how to do it, and he just took it and ran with it. It was awesome. He still plays it today. Yeah. But fast forward to now, like, all that influential stuff that I was way, affected by, with Uli and Scorpions and Thin Lizzy and so on, you hear it all over the Nefarious stuff. And it's just as fresh as it always has been. And it really kind of shocked me. Like one of the last songs we recorded for the record called Snarler, I play these outrageous melodies, they're harmonies at the end. Rick and I play them. And there's nothing really super difficult about them, but it has this, like, they jump out at you because of the way that the melody is, and it's really
it follows the rhythm behind the melody. I've been working.
Then there's that. It builds.
Yeah. The actual harmony follows the rhythm almost exactly, but it's way higher register. And it's pretty badass. I've been working on that a lot this afternoon.
It's amazing because it's so simple. Honestly, Rick, when I was coming up with that shit, it was just like, you remember I was telling you when we were coming up with a lot of these melodies, they're pretty straightforward and not really difficult to play by design. I mean, there's something to be said for simple stuff. If you listen to a lot of the stuff Schenker does, you'll see right away what I'm talking about. Absolutely. Schenker will come up with the most beautiful, eye-watering melodies, and there's nothing really to them. They're just beautifully simple.
Yeah.
And that is another huge influence too,
Song again, here we go.
Yeah, and and I think people, it's interesting you mentioned both of those guys, because I think people like Uli Roth and Schenker, I think sometimes their influence, they don't get as much credit for that. But if you talk to almost every band that, basically came out maybe in the late 70s, early to mid 80s, a lot of those guitar players were highly influenced by those guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And they know, because if you go to any of their shows, they're filled up with disciples.
Yeah, and look at the amps they're playing out of. I mean, everybody's trying to get that tone. And dude,
it's like Schenker still to this day.
Roth, where would we be without Michael and Uli right now?
Yeah.
Oh God, I don't know, man. But there's just been a lot of really important innovators. I would say, without getting too heavily into it, there's like the top 10 innovative guitar players, and those two guys are definitely in there.
100%. There's no question. Gary Moore, Eddie Van Halen, Richie Blackmore. Even dudes from like Tom Schultz, dude. Tom Schultz from Boston. Holy shit.
Yeah, he knew how to put together really beautiful songs with melodies and harmonies.
What an amazing dude, man.
Yeah, that record blew my mind. It's like, if I only talk about, I mentioned Thin Lizzy and I did mention Uli, but it was Boston too. Boston really got me going with a lot of that stuff.
Dude,
I used to always wonder how the hell the mix and the sound of that album was as good as it was.
Because
back in the first
genius,
album.
bro.
Yeah.
He's a genius. This is way before digital. Everything he did was to 2-inch. So,
yeah,
and he just, the recording techniques, the mics, the performances, his layering of harmonies, it's just, the dude was so far ahead of his time. I got goosebumps talking about Tom Schultz. Dude's amazing, bro. I listened to the very first Boston album and I just sit there shaking my head going, every one of them is a freaking hit, dude.
Yep.
And it's just like, so good. So good.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny you bring that up, because I remember listening to that for the first time, and I'm like, how did they get this album to sound so good back in the 70s? Because nothing sounded that polished back then.
Skills. Straight up skills.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tom Schultz got skills.
That's a good question. I don't know.
That
was a groundbreaker. That record really broke ground.
Think about it. It's funny because
maybe as much as Van Halen 1. You know what I mean?
No, Van Halen 1 was not the same. Van Halen one was super critically important. Don't get me wrong, but it was way more raw. It was way more like, okay, this is kicking over everything over the cliff. You know, like let's really go for it here. Being polished was not what Van Halen was. It was bringing the power.
Right.
You know, that's what that happened. I mean, don't get me wrong. That is an insanely critically important record.
Yeah.
No question about it. But it's not the same kind of polish. Like you would hear it. Schultz did something that Foreigner started, but he took it farther. You know, back in those days when we were like in high school and learning how to play and always looking for something heavier. You know, like
Marshall amps, dude, that Foreigner used to use. You know what I mean? Because when I did the Merkins show with Phil Demmel, one of the songs was a Foreigner song, and I would listen to the original cut, and I was like, God damn, those guitars are badass, dude. They sound so good.
And it was a Les Paul and a Marshall. Yeah, that's it.
That's it.
I don't even think they had overdrives on it. I mean, it sounds too. It's like that Priest album, Stained Class.
Yeah. Oh God.
That isn't very distorted either. It's like
my favorite. That's my favorite Priest album in the world.
It's very calmly recorded. Yep. You know,
100%.
Absolutely, guys. Well, hey, getting towards the end of this, I got to tell you, it was a lot of fun talking to you. And
good questions.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, I'm really looking forward to the album when that comes out because, you know, I'll be honest with you. So I actually went when I did my review of the first song. One of the things I said, and one of the things, and I'll kind of pose this to you towards the end here, is that anytime you get bands, and more often than not, of guys from a lot of other more well-known bands that have been, like, let's say, for example, well-known bands in within the thrash scene, and you throw them together, a lot of times those projects just don't live up to the hype. And so when I listen to this, and I'm looking at guys from all these different Bay Area bands, it really just, I don't know what it was, but it's one of the few times I can tell you that I was actually very impressed with the music, and it really hit me pretty hard that, man, this song is really good. And more often than not, I mean, you guys know, you guys have seen bands that it doesn't matter what genre of music is, you get like these super groups together and then they go and make this record and it doesn't hit expectations. So you see people with all these well-known bands, successful bands on their resume, they get together, which is what you guys did. And again, I think the difference was it just felt natural for you guys to make these songs. And I think that's why it turned out as well as it did. Yeah.
I thank you, Tony. I appreciate that.
Yeah, me too. That was great.
Yeah. So, I mean, to comment on that, I really don't know what the equation is. I think it's just like, it's heartfelt music. There's not a lot of pretentious shit going on. It's just old school, back to the basics, heavy guitars, and like I said again, it's just really song oriented. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just naturally let things naturally develop. You know, don't try to push the envelope so hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, that's all. I never really felt like anything was. I mean, we just would have a suggestion every now and then, like, what about if we tried that, or. You know, like Will and I would be like, you know, hurling parts out of the song as fast as we would put them back in and double the length. Or like, you know, there was a time when Rick came up with that outrageous guitar harmony thing in the One Nation song, and that was really cool because I was doing an old school metal thing where you just play like these intro riffs and you just bang and thrash for a while, 4 measures before the vocals start, right?
Well, you were the one with the idea, though, because
it wasn't my idea. I don't wait. Was it? No, it was your idea. No, it was Caden's idea.
We need a harmony here.
We should put a guitar harmony there.
Is that what Caden?
Yeah, it was Caden's idea.
And then Doug reached out and he goes, "Dude, we need a harmony here." And I'm going, "Okay."
And then it was at the end of the song after the solo section,
right?
And I said, "Rick, that's your job. Figure this out."
You know what it reminds me of?
And then I said, "We need it in the front too."
Yeah. So that's kind of a rare thing when you have harmony like that, and then you put it two parts of the song. That's kind of a rare thing. So, and I was like, I don't know if that's going to work, but it did work.
Yeah, it feels like everybody wanted to just make the songs better.
Dude, that's it.
It's like that was the whole intention. Like nobody was saying, the way you described it earlier when you're like saying, there aren't a lot of egos and stuff like that. It felt like people were just, all you were doing was, how can I make this better? And I was just talking to some people that made a record not long ago, and that was their whole approach. And I think that could be part of it too for me, because again, I wasn't expecting the song. I kind of was like, okay, let's hear what this sounds like, and was not expecting it to hit me the way that it did. So
that's awesome, Tony. That's awesome. Thank you so much for that. That's awesome. So we're just gonna keep doing what we're doing, dude. We don't have a lot of expectations, but we have a ton of gratitude. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So and I think that goes a long way. We really never take our fans for granted.
Sure.
And it's the bottom line. It's just what we all love to do.
Yeah.
And I hope that comes out in the songs, right, Douglas?
Yeah, it's pretty much exactly the way it is.
Absolutely.
I mean, they're really fun to play because we came up with them ourselves, and they're by design relatively easy to play. And I mean, maybe not for everyone, but for Rick and I, because we already play like that, it's not really that difficult. Right. And you get the tones right, and it's not. I mean, I can't wait till Death Angel's still in Europe. As soon as Will gets back, he wants to start practicing right away. So we're going to be doing the set for the record release show, real soon after he returns. And I'm really looking forward to that. It should be fun.
Awesome, gentlemen. Well, hey, it was great to have you on. It was definitely great to talk to you guys for the first time ever.
Oh, yeah.
As someone that has listened to the bands that you guys have been in the past, it's great to be able to actually speak to you about this and some stuff that happened and things that you pretty much were a part of for the scene that you came up with, because you guys are, again, you're part of that scene that really kind of invented this whole genre basically. So
well, thank you. It means a lot that we can have this conversation. You had some excellent questions, by the way.
No. You know what? And I noticed that you don't have a script in front of you like a lot of people do. Like you're reading from a piece of paper, and that's pretty impressive.
I've been doing this 27 years, so
yeah, I can tell. It's
funny. It comes from I've worked for bands. And stuff, and I've done this. I mean, this was a radio show for a long time, and it kind of I turned it into a podcast not that long ago. So, I've been doing this a long time. Just
awesome. We can tell
what it is. So, yeah, I mean, think about this. This show was named after an Exodus song.
Yeah, dude, you took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say, yeah, man, it's a Metal Command podcast, and it's great name.
Yep. Hey, everybody. Tony here from the Metal Command podcast. Again, I appreciate your support. Since 1998, I have hosted this show in one form or another, starting off in radio and now in the podcast format. Again, thanks for watching. And if you like what you see and hear on this show, by all means, please hit the subscribe button, hit the little bell to be notified anytime I do post a video. And if you see this program on any other form of social media, please give me a follow there. Again, I always appreciate your support.